Hello, I'm Locke, Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney Hillar Moore. Hillar's going to talk to us about how the crime in 2013 is down by 31% compared to the historical highs of last year. He attributes a lot of the drive down in crime, murder, to the BRAVE project. BRAVE has now just received multiple millions of dollars, and it's going to be expanded in the East Baton Rouge Parish. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Hillar Moore. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have back on the show Hillar Moore. He's the District Attorney for East Baton Rouge Parish. Hillar, it's great to see you.
Glad to be here.
We were doing this, probably about this time last year.
About a year ago or so.
And had you and the Baton Rouge Police Chief and the Sheriff Sid Gautreaux, and been talking about crime that whole year. And the reason was crime was high.
Yeah, we haven't had a significant problem last year. We still continue to have issues like any big city. Although we're not the biggest types of city, medium-sized cities seem to have more crime going on now across the country than the larger and obviously the smaller cities. So we were experiencing what many other cities were experiencing, but hopefully we've turned the corner. We still have a long way to go.
Well, let's talk about it. You know, I know there was a big announcement just this morning by the mayor that we got another grant. Tell the folks about that.
Well, just 2 days ago, we received a notice that we received an additional $1 million on top of the 1.5 that we received last year.
And this is coming from the Department of Justice, the federal government?
Correct. And with an emphasis on juvenile individuals. And so that was an announcement we made 2 days ago. And yesterday, when I happened to be visiting you at your office, I received a phone call and notified that we just received an additional $1.5 million as a supplemental to our original grant.
Which is fantastic news.
I mean, it was unbelievable. I had to control myself in your office without telling you what was going on.
That's right.
But Dr. Cecile Guin at LSU and her staff, they applied for this original grant some time ago, along with the supplemental. And I'm assuming that the federal government waited to see what happened. They awarded us that initial grant, and things are really rocking along pretty well. And I believe that we got this additional money because of the collaboration that they see here, not only from the law enforcement, but the faith-based and the actual community themselves, where people are starting to buy in. So hopefully that's a good sign.
You're being very humble because, you know, I remember when we were sitting here with the other law enforcement folks, they 100% said that you were the power and the strength of that idea. Well, and I know a lot of folks contributed, the mayor and the other law enforcement folks. I'm not taking away from them.
No, absolutely.
It's a great credit to you, Hillar, and I'm just telling you.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm only one person.
We all appreciate what you've done.
I do appreciate it. I'm only one person. I have a great office staff, but you're right, the mayor, sheriff, city, federal authorities, LSU, everyone worked together. All of our experts that we've had that we hired on, we did it the right way. We planned this for years, and we were scared. We didn't know what was going to happen. And
tough times.
So far, it's it's tough times. And we did this without any additional money, with the exception of a little startup money for the city council, which we really appreciated and needed, and no additional manpower that's hired or paid to do what we're doing. So it's a better way, a smarter way of looking at how we deal with traditional crime problems.
Well, so let me ask you the question. Sure. From where we were sitting here this time last year, is crime up or down?
You know, for me as a DA, it's hard for me to look and tell you whether crime's up or down. I can only tell you what I see, and I see bodies that are on the ground. And I try to go to every murder that there is. So for sure, murders are down. As of today, I think 31%, as of earlier in the week, 35. So significantly down in a very short period of time. In speaking with Dr. Ed Shahada, the criminologist at LSU, he has showed us a map that I think I've shared with you before, where crime overall from January until September of this year, compared to every day last year on a 15-day average, is down 17%. And in fact, no one day ever crept above any one day last year at the corresponding day. So which is good news. And we have seen a reduction in felony offenses coming in the office, and for some reason an increase in misdemeanors. And I think maybe the city police are sending us more cases on domestic violence and some gun cases where we maybe can do a better job and handle these people.
Now, you know, we use the word crime. So in my head, I'm going, there's serious kind of violence-related crime, and then there's non-violent crime.
Right.
Do you have any idea of what the breakdown is, comparatively speaking, with last year?
I don't, only to tell you that the felony offenses are down coming in our office. We've seen a 1,000 or 2,000 case reduction in felony offenses, but we've also seen an increase of around 3,000 to 4,000 misdemeanor offenses coming in. So we'll take that figure,
right,
and we'll work with it. Just a reduction of the murders. Let's say we stay where we are. We're around 24 murders less than last year.
You made an interesting statement yesterday too, Hillar, that if that becomes a long-term trend, that is saving...
Well, you know, forget with the most important part, which you can't. It's saving a life.
Right.
You know, saving right now 24 lives from last year. It's also important to us as prosecutors, which may people may not agree or see. It's saving 25 to 30 young folks going to prison for the rest of their life. That's a lot. The amount of money that's being saved is tremendous.
So you're saving 2 lives in essence.
2 lives, but you're also saving families, and that's what it's all about. But the other thing is, you know, you're helping the community, and for us, that's about 40 years of work, and for the public defender, because each murder case takes a year to 2 years. Some take a little bit longer. So you're around 40 years of work that we won't realize down the road. And hopefully, if this continues, that's going to save us a lot of time, and we can devote time to other things. And when the murder rate goes down, so the police and I go on these types of calls, and the shootings go down, what you see is an increase in people in the community saying, hey, there's litter on the street, or there's small amount of things, the nuisance things, and so your community gets better. But those types of calls go up, which is a good thing. So we hope to see those calls go up. Maybe that's why we're seeing the increase in misdemeanors. Not sure just yet. But again, I want to caution everyone, we are way early in this process, but we're so far ahead of other cities that have done it. Boston, Chicago, it took them several years to get down from 35 to 50. Now we're down 8 or 9 months, 30-something%. So we're going to take where we are. Our goal was maybe 5 murders less or 10. So we still have to go to December, but I like where we are right now. And
you've said this before, that I mean, it can change month to month. But
it can change tonight.
All we're dealing with is right now, and right now it's down by 31% in terms of murders. So let's talk about how, in your opinion, that has happened. You kind of hit us real fast there with a few punches in the beginning, but let's kind of dissect it.
Well, you know, we rolled out the BRAVE effort and the BRAVE model with the help of the city's money before we received the grant. We decided if we didn't receive that grant money, we're going to try this model without the money. Not sure how successful we would have been, because a big part of this is the research that LSU does. It helps us work smarter. But we followed this gun violence and group violence reduction strategy, which is kind of complicated, but it involves identifying people, places, and groups, and doing homicide audits, doing group audits, and targeting certain folks that are committing your biggest offenses. And that's kind of how we started. And we had our first call in at the end of April, and flowed from there, which I know maybe...
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because it's really an interesting concept. Right. I'm not sure, I know I've never heard of such a thing. Well, what is a call-in?
Well, if we can back up. Back in November of last year, we had the University of Cincinnati. They came in and we did what's called a homicide review. We looked at our homicides for the past 2.5, 3 years. We looked at every one of them. We had about 100 people there, homicide detectives, officers, deputies, community people, faith-based people, and we looked at our homicides to find out who's killing who and why they're killing each other.
And started from there.
Started from there, and then we'll go from there.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke, Meredith, and our guest, the District Attorney of East Baton Rouge Parish, Hillar Moore. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke, Meredith. Again, very pleased to have on the show Hillar Moore. He's the district attorney for East Baton Rouge Parish. Hillar, let's dive right back in. So, call-ins.
Right. So, well, we were talking about reviews of homicide. And so the first thing we needed to determine is, why are people killing each other? And the first reaction that we had as law enforcement was, it's a bunch of drug dealers killing each other. And so we said, all right, let's analyze each one. So we did for 2.5, 3 years. And what we found out was, with the help of this University of Cincinnati, have done this before, around 57% of the homicides over 3 years, but what we call GMI, and that's a group member involved.
Wow.
And
so
a group
gangs.
member. It's a, well, we'll get to that. So they're a member of a group in Baton Rouge, and either they were a defendant or a victim. That's 57%.
Wow.
So we thought that was bad news that we have groups or gangs. Actually, the groups or gangs that we have are called street gangs. They're not the hierarchy gangs like you see in LA.
The Crips or stuff like that.
Right. So fortunately, we don't have that, at least at this time. But they're organized around a school, around a neighborhood, maybe around music or things like that, and they commit crimes for various reasons. So although being alarmed that we had groups, the researchers said, hey, that's good news for you, because the group members only total around 600. And if you deal with people that are dealing drugs, you're dealing with people who are not organized or associated. You might deal with 2,000 or 3,000. It's going to be hard to attack that drug dealing murder. So we went, after that, we then went back and did what's called a group audit. So we identified all of the different groups in Baton Rouge, and at that time it was 32. And we came up with the names of the group, their pictures, social media, names, address, dates of birth, schools, mom and dad, criminal history, the colors, things that they do, where they go. And so we organized these groups together. Fantastic. And we did it through the Fusion Center at the Louisiana State Police. So we have a lot of help involved with, besides the federal agencies, state police. And so now we identified these murders with certain groups and said that leads us to the call-in. And under this gun violence reduction strategy, what you do is, once these groups are identified, you find a group of kids, normally, that are group members, that you can have a call-in. A call-in means you call these people into a meeting. And I don't know if you ever heard of law enforcement go out and calling someone in to speak with them, other than to handcuff them or take an interrogation.
It's
that
not
just
a fun event.
Well, it doesn't happen. I mean, that just has never happened, particularly here. So we identified around 42 kids that have had issues before that are group members. And they were representative of not every one of the groups, but the majority of the groups that we wanted to deal with at the time, the most violent groups, because we also rated the groups as to where they are, 705, 02, 15, and how high in violence their actions have been. So we invited 42 folks, and we looked for kids that have what's called a lever.
Okay, I was going to say, how do you invite? How do you choose who to invite?
We give them a letter. Now, some of the kids that had a lever, they couldn't say no because they were either in prison or they were in juvenile detention. They got a ride to our call-in meeting. Others were on the street and they were on probation or parole or were awaiting a trial. And so we had a little bit of leverage over them. And we had some federal agent or probation parole agent or jailer give them a letter and say, you're invited to this meeting. And in the letter, it's signed by myself, the chief, and the sheriff. We said, this isn't a joke. You know, you're not required to attend. We'd like for you to attend. We want to talk to you. And you're not going to be arrested. We're not giving away television, so it's not a joke. Right. And we hand-delivered those letters 1 day or 2 days prior to the call-in, saying we didn't release the location or the date except to those people so that no one would know. And so we had it all set up. We actually had it at the courthouse, and when they came, they were assigned a particular seat with their name on it, and their parents were allowed to come. We had law enforcement in the room from all of the federal agencies with their letters on their vest, Sheriff's Office, City Police, DA's Office, United States Attorney. But in addition to law enforcement, we also had all the faith-based community representatives. We have community representatives there in the audience.
That's interesting. And
we had our social service provider representatives. So these kids coming into this meeting have no idea really what they're coming into because this is brand new. unless maybe some have read the paper and read about call-ins, which I would doubt. The people that were going to give the talk to these kids, we all were in the back in a jury room, away from everybody. And because we were going to walk in once everyone was seated. I also forget to tell you that as they came in and they were seated waiting for us to come out, they saw their pictures on the screen. They saw crime scenes with dead bodies of people that they know, or maybe their groups had been involved in a killing. They saw the locations of the prisons, saw locations of federal prisons. They saw the pictures and the amount of time that their fellow members had received as a result of gun violence and violence. And that was running the entire time.
Interesting.
Each also had a package on their seat of rap sheet to let them know if you're caught with a gun because you're a convicted felon. This federal prisons, this is where you're going. It's not anywhere around Louisiana. And just so they knew we were there. And they also had a list of service providers, and if they ever wanted help, what they could get. So they showed up. And
so how many
to our surprise, there were around 37 of the 40-something that we asked that showed up. And again, we walked out the back, and I had no idea whether I'd see 2 people or 30 people. And when we showed up, there was over 30. Chicago, I think, had done it the same week, and they were experienced at this. They had 2 to 4 folks show up out of 40 invited. So we were pleasantly shocked. They were well-dressed. They were well-behaved. Nobody said anything whatsoever crossways. It was extremely regimented. The message was the same.
What was the message?
The message was, we know who you are. You know who we are. You belong to this group. We're not asking you to comment one way or the other. And there's a new message for you. The next body that hits the ground, that's a result of you or your group, or the next person that is hurt because of some gun violence.
In other words, you shoot at somebody.
Any kind of shooting, or particularly a dead body. If a body hits the ground, that we're coming after not only you, if you're the person, but your entire group. So we couldn't have all 600 group members, so we had representatives. Take this message back to your group. I know you've heard us before. We've drawn some lines in the sand, but this one's different because look at all the people here that we have together.
Show power and strength.
We like you as a person. We don't like what you're doing. It's got to stop. So all the law enforcement representatives said exactly the same message.
So it was repeated?
Repeated by 4 or 5 of us.
Wow.
Then what the next person was the faith-based. They came in and said, same message, we love you. We don't love what you're doing. We can't keep burying. I'm going to have to bury you. That's what's going to happen. We don't want that to happen. And by the way, maybe we're not always with law enforcement on issues, but on this issue, we're with them 100%. Don't come run to me if you kill someone or a body hits the ground. Following the faith-based was the community representatives. We had a doctor who works at the prison who's well known, Collis Temple, several others in the community that they know each other. Told them exactly the same thing. I love you. I don't love what you're doing. It's got to stop. We're all together.
Wow.
And then we had Miss Pete, who was the closer. Miss Pete's son was killed by gun violence. And when her son was killed, she made a book of his life. And since that time, for every young person that's been killed in Baton Rouge, she's made a book. And she's brought it to that mother's house. She's helped that mother bury her child. And she's afraid of nobody. She's an ace. She's a hero. She's a stud. She walks in the neighborhood and she knows and they know her. And she was the most effective.
That's amazing, Hillar.
Yep.
We'll be right back. This is Locke Meredith, Hillar Moore, our district attorney. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. We're going to dive right back in. We've got Hillar Moore, our district attorney for East Baton Rouge Parish. You were talking about the call-in, presentation of the message to these guys. And
so we talked about the stick, which is law enforcement. If a body hits the ground, we're coming after you. We're gonna take care of your whole group. The carrot is we have 50 community service providers. If you want a way out, once we deal with your charges, because you have charges against you, once we deal with those, if you want a way out, raise your hand. We're going to give you help. They don't raise their hand at this meeting. We follow up later with a knock on the door, visit to the cell, saying, do you want some help? And we let the judge know if they don't want any help and they come back and they reoffend, we offer them help and they didn't want any help, so you need to take care of this person.
So consequences if they don't accept the help too.
Because you have to have consequences. So it was real effective, and we have really curbed, I believe, group homicides. And this strategy is really only for group murders. We can't solve every murder in Baton Rouge, at least not now. We're going to take it one step at a time.
But it sounds like 60% of the murders are group murders.
Related, somehow related.
Very interesting. And you know, you said that you had all your law enforcement there, and I know that we've got a new chief of police for the Baton Rouge City Police.
We have a good one.
And it's Police Chief Carl.
Carl Dabney. He's a veteran police officer. Best thing about Carl is that he knows the heart and soul, not only of the police department, but every one of these men and women, because he's been at that training academy for a long time. He's trained them all. He not only knows them, knows wives, friends, children. He's going to be very effective.
And you told me privately, he's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So that's a great addition to this law enforcement.
Absolutely, it's working together.
That we got.
And he understands BRAVE. He's committed. He's institutionalized BRAVE like the sheriff has. So that means, as I told you last year, that we were always afraid that if one of us are not in this position, will they go away? Now I believe that it's institutionalized, particularly with the help of LSU and the work that LSU has been doing with us.
You know, Hillar, one other quick thought in that regard, though, is that the sheriff, Sid Gotro, you also told me that he is now coming into the city limits. There's no really jurisdictional distinctions.
Well, correct. And what's happening is the city is having some initiatives in the city when they're having some issues, and all the different BRAVE units and SCAT units, they're working together in the city, and the city also likewise is going into the parish when the sheriff calls. So
excellent.
The city's in charge in the city, sheriff's in charge in the parish, but they're using each other and using that intelligence and the communication. That's the key.
And so now let's shift gears, because you were telling me we have tools in law enforcement that we've never had.
Absolutely.
Tell the folks about it.
A whole new way of looking at crime. Okay, since money's tight, and it's tough to get new officers or new deputies. So now let's look at crime in a new way. Maybe we can look at it through a computer and research. And so what we've done is, with this grant, we could not do it money-wise without the grant. We have dumped hundreds of thousands of reports and information into a computer at LSU. And the criminologists, social scientists, geographers, social network mappers have looked at all of the data that we've dumped, and they can tell us who's the worst offender, where's the worst place, and who are the worst groups. And they can not only tell us that historically, they can tell us that on a weekly basis, where crimes have changed, where crime is going down, where it's going up. So now they can tell you by time of day, by month, by week, by weekend, by week. Now we get to filter that down to the uniformed officers, which is the most important aspect for me, is the uniformed guys on the street. They give us the information, we feed it into this computer, it sends us back, and we want to let them know, hey, what you doing matters, because they really can't see it quite often in their little district. But when you show them the entire thing, then it can. So what we have is, we have some maps, like LSU's looked at the entire parish.
And we'll
it's very hard to
see
here, but they've broken it down into districts. And when you drill down further, it's like Plank Road, for example. It's a long road. They have an intersection of Plank Road, which is the worst section in Baton Rouge. And so at a certain time of the day or the month, that's what officers now know, hey, this is where crime is likely to happen.
Percentages go up.
Absolutely. So it's people, and we have now a way of rating people and their offenses by the time of day, the month, the type of offense, and whether they're involved in a group type of crime. And we rate that out. And so instead of historically looking at repeat offenders over 20 and 40 years, let's find out the ones in the last 2 years that are causing us trouble now. Let's take care of them now. So people, places, and groups. And so not only are they doing that type of information, but they give us as I told you, the violent crime by week or by month. And that helps us.
So you know the time of a month?
We know the time of the month and within the hour.
It's incredible. Within the hour?
Within the hour. And more importantly is the groups. And these are the groups that we have in Baton Rouge. And you see that on the map, that not only can we identify the groups, but we identify the people in the groups. And then we have some people on the fringe who are those that are maybe using influence between two groups, some that are maybe brokers between groups, and how groups are related. And this is some really fascinating stuff that we on the ground, like for example, we're a chessboard. We're on the chessboard moving players around. The guys at LSU and ladies at LSU, they're above, and they get to watch things that are happening on the chessboard, and it's a different view. And the good thing about it is they're not in control and we're not in control. We communicate with each other, and communication and information and data drives this. And it's neutral. Like, I don't know if you're male or female, black or white, where you live. The computer spits this out without any of that information. And this is really helping us. And when we come time maybe to see a judge and tell the judge, look, this is what this person is responsible for, and this is the message maybe we gave them or their group in the call-in. This is the guy that you really need to take care of.
Consequences.
And so we're identifying these guys, and let's concentrate our resources on just a few who are causing the big problem instead of dispersing out and trying to fight 3,000 people when we really should be fighting 25 and being real effective.
Hillar, I saw one other that was almost like a thermogram, where you call it the hotspot.
The hotspot map is, and this is obviously blurred for a reason.
So we don't know where.
You don't, but I can tell you that it's 70805, 702, Gardier, and a little further up in the north. And we've seen where some hotspots have moved a little bit. Like, we were shocked to find that majority of the crime is down all over, but some places that were really high last year are almost non-existent right now. And they've moved up in other places. So it's telling us now that's where you have to go, where we may not have seen that from our level,
right,
but you can see it from above. And so our hope is, and what we're going to start to do now is to roll this out to the officers through their commanders every week, every 2 weeks at roll call. In fact, now our staff and the people at LSU are going to go to all the different roll call meetings and say, this is what we can give you in the form of data, maps, and analysis, and groups. Is this effective for you? Can you use this? Or tell me, what do you want? And I was pleasantly surprised, because law enforcement, this is tough for law enforcement to accept. It's a whole new way. When I went to the commanders meeting, they said, man, that's some really good stuff, but could you give me this? Particularly time of day,
wow,
the week and weekend, and that generated a report that quickly. And so we know that now when we get further down, the guys on the street who are real knowledgeable
right, the
about these people,
soldiers,
they know them all. And when we get down there, they're going to tell us more, hey, this is what I really need. Or, for example, and one of the drawbacks that people have said about Brave is, well, you're concentrating on 05 and 02. What about the burglaries in my neighborhood? This can also work with burglaries, although right now the info we have are violent crimes. We can morph it into anything, any age group, burglaries, theft, domestic violence, drugs. And so the sky's the limit on what we can do.
Fantastic. It's interesting too, because crime is destructive to a city, both in terms of population growth and businesses moving here.
Yeah.
And so clearly this is an investment in our city.
No question. It's the best thing for business.
And you guys need all the resources that you can get. We're 100% behind you. Hillar, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Glad to be here. Hope you invite me back.
We got to follow up. This is Locke, Meredith with Legal Lines, our District Attorney Hillar Moore. Thank you for being with us.